Okay, so here's the thing. I leave for New York in less than 12 hours and I just remembered that I still haven't filmed my September wrap up, and if I don't film it now, I don't know when it's gonna go up. It's going to be like mid-October before that happens. So I am going to quickly sit down, talk about the books. I believe that there were 12 that I read in September with you, and we're just gonna chill out. September was such a good reading month, let me tell you. Okay, I knew I was back. I knew it. We had a reading slump, as in all summer long I didn't have a 5-star. Not a single 5-star read for like 3 months, okay? I talked more about that in this video here. One of these sides, I never remember which. But today, don't worry, everything has changed. I believe that there were only 2 books that I would say I did not like out of the 12 that I read. And out of those 12, I think 4 of them were a 5-star. Yeah, 4 5 stars. What? So this is just gonna be a chilled, laid back, I don't have a ton of time to edit. Hopefully I'm not gonna ramble on too much and make editing Lexa hate me for having to cut out a bunch of stuff. I am surrounded by things that I have to pack. I am in the middle of packing, but I wanna do this now so that hopefully later tonight I can edit it and then get it uploaded so that you can see it. Also, does everyone wanna see Willow before she lays down? Because she is laying down right here, but I don't think you can see her. Don't bite me, please. I just wanted you to, hello. Does my lip gloss smell like cake? I just wanted you to say hi. Say hi. She does not like being held. She has places to go, people to see. But she's so big now. She was 1 pound when I found her and she's now 4.5 pounds. Go Willow. Hey, that's my hand. This is the first time I'm gonna be away from her for more than like 24 hours. Less than 24 hours. So I'm nervous, but it'll be good for us because we've had a lot of together time. Okay, now let's go ahead and get into it. The first book that I read that technically was the night of, like the last day of August going into the 1st of September, because I stayed up until 5 a.m. to finish reading this book, is The Need. Listen, I don't know what to say about this book because I went into it, Willow, hey, that's my arm. I went into it literally knowing nothing. Absolutely nothing. All I knew is that Kayla had read it and that she did not recommend anyone read it, but then she made some comparisons to like, if you liked these certain horror books, maybe you'll like this one. And it just sounded like my kind of read. 5 stars, 5 stars. But okay, that does not mean that I recommend this book. I already talked about this a little bit in my full summer wrap up, so I'm not gonna say a ton. And honestly, there's not a ton to say because I think that the less that you know about this, like going into this book, the better. It is short, it's like 230 pages, so basically a novella. I love that I read it all in one sitting, and if you can do that, that is how I would recommend consuming this book. The only thing I will say, just give you something. Like if you like my brand of weird and Kayla's brand of weird, maybe you'll like this book, but maybe not, okay? Because I don't even know what genre to classify it as, other than kind of horror, but kind of not. And it's following a mom and her 2 kids. And at the very beginning of this book, we see the mom and she thinks that like maybe someone is breaking into the house. I think that you'll know right off the bat whether the writing is for you. I don't know how to tell you whether the way that the plot goes is for you, other than you've just gotta try it out. But also don't try it, okay? Not at my recommendation. Just know that I loved it and it was 5 stars and it was such a chef's kiss way to start off this month. Okay, another chef's kiss way to start off this month is that I started reading the Veronica Speedwell series. So the first book is A Curious Beginning, but throughout the month I read 4 of them, and I'm currently working on the 5th book. And this is so off-brand for me. Okay, I have tried to be a romance girly. I have a whole stack of romance books here that I'm kidding myself thinking I'm gonna read that I bought mainly back when I thought I could be a romance girly, and I want to be so badly. But every time I read a romance, I hate it. I hate it. And the Veronica Speedwell series is technically a mystery series set in like 1880s England, but let's be honest here, we are all here for the romance between Veronica and Stoker. Veronica is a butterfly hunter, butterfly scientist who is awesome, so ahead of her time, so sex positive, so independent. We love her. And Stoker is like a natural historian. He does like taxidermy and other such things, and he's like broody. He was like set up by the Baron, who Veronica like just met the Baron, okay? He like rescues her, kind of helps save her from a break-in turned hostage situation. And he's like, hey, actually, you are like the most precious thing in the world to me. I know you don't know me, hi. Do you mind if I take you to London and just like make sure you're taken care of? And she's like, okay, sure, I needed a ride to London anyway. So he drops her off at London to Stoker, and he's like, Stoker, guard her with your life. Stoker's like, fucking fine. Okay, whatever. And then the Baron dies. And Stoker's like, how do I know that you didn't have anything to do with this? And she was like, I was here all night cleaning up your shit. But fine, we need to figure this out together because clearly there were like some secrets in my past. There were things that he knew. He knew my mom. I don't know who my parents are. I want answers and I want to know what happened to him because he was like very kind to me. And then things happen. There is like angsty romance. It is a slow burn. Okay, slow burn. Okay, they do not get together in the first book. They don't even get together in the second book. So you have to be okay just going along for the ride. But I think the reason that this works for me so well, I don't care about the mysteries in them. There was like one mystery plot I actually kind of cared about. The rest of them, it is just Stoker and Veronica and their relationship. And I think the reason it works is because, Willow, this is a bit much. It's just a bit much. I shouldn't have picked you up because you were peacefully sleeping before I did. I knew it was a bad choice. I think it works for me because of the slow burn in a weird way, because normally I am here for smut and I don't want like nothing happening for quite a lot of books. But because they develop like not enemies, but like kind of they're suspicious of each other and they bicker a lot to like a deep, true, loving friendship where they care so much about each other and respect each other so much. Two lovers, and we follow that timeline. I am just so in love with them and their relationship and I buy it. And I think that's what I'm missing from a lot of romances, and I'm getting time with them. And I think that that is also what I need. Romances, the ones that I've read, I feel like you're spending so little time with them actually together. And even though this is a slower burn, they are still together and like respecting and loving each other, even if it's not necessarily in a romantic, we're together kind of way. It's still just as beautiful, incredible. I have not given a single book in this series 5 stars yet, but I don't care. Like I still love it and I still would recommend it. And most of them have been between like 3.5. And then I think this last one I rated like 4 or 4.5 stars. The last one was my favorite, the 4th book that I read. The 3rd book had my favorite mystery to it. And each book has like its own separate mystery, but there are obviously like plots throughout and things that we're figuring out. It's so much fun. I had my mom listening to the audiobook with me. I've recommended it to a few other people. I had a book club and I was telling them all about her and her butterfly hunting. Love Veronica and Stoker. Oh my God, and yet again we have another 5-star read. Yes, 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 I know. The vibes have changed. And that is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. Oh my God. I knew I could be a V.E. Schwab girly. I read Vicious, is that it? I don't remember. It's one of those in that series. It was fine, but honestly I could give or take it. The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, exactly what I was looking for. In this we're following Addie, who about 300-ish years in the past, she is about to be married off and she's like, I don't want this life, like I want to be free. And there are gods in this world, but she's been told, don't pray to the gods that answer after dark. Well, our girl goes into the forest on her wedding day to run away, and then somehow like doesn't realize that it turns nighttime and she's like still praying. And then what happens? A god who answers after night shows up. And he's like, oh, I can help you out with this. It's fine. Except obviously there's a catch. So the deal that they end up making is that she can live forever, but no one remembers her. Like the second they walk out of the room and they come back in, it's like the first time they're ever meeting Addie. So that makes her life pretty hard, okay? Because you can't like have a house or pay rent or have a job or make like meaningful, lasting connections with people if they can't remember you. So she is living her life. We're getting like a bunch of different POVs from like her perspective, but timelines. From like when this is first happening to her to present day to where she's been in between, all of her travels. It is slow at times, which I've seen a lot of people complain about, and I get, okay, this is slower and it is a character-based story and we are in her head a lot. But I think that the slow parts and the monotony is purposeful because her life is like slow and monotonous and honestly like aggravating how much you're just like doing the same shit and like in survival mode. So I think that the writing at times like mirrors that. I love it so much. And also mirrors how like day to day, page by page it can go slow, but then all of a sudden you've covered so hundreds of years of an immortal life. And the premise of this book kicks off when she is in like modern day New York, I believe, and she walks into a bookstore and the man who is working there remembers her. And she's like, huh? This isn't supposed to happen. She's trying to figure out, how do you remember me? They're building a relationship together. Things are happening with the god after dark who answered her. I loved it. Absolutely loved it. I will say that whenever I was looking up reviews of this, especially on YouTube, because I just wanted to hear more people talk about it and hear why people didn't like it and why they did, because I know that this is widely loved, but then there's also a lot of people who really didn't like it. I found a really, really awesome video by Sydney who is talking about like the nuances of Addie LaRue and how like white it is, to be perfectly honest with you. Like, I think throughout the entire book, she mentions and seemingly comes in contact with like one person of color. Sydney did, like, just watch that video, okay? I'm gonna link it in the description box below, but talking about the nuances of like who should be telling these stories, how authors should be incorporating and can incorporate people of color, and just is able to articulate so many things so much better than I ever could around that conversation. But one thing that I didn't know about this book that I was pleasantly surprised about is the amount of queerness in it. Like, almost every character, main character, is queer. And it's so normalized. Like, hearing like the guy talk about his love interests that he's had in the past, and then being guys and girls, and it's just so natural, and like it's just a thing, was amazing. Okay, then we take a turn, friends. We take a turn. An unexpected, aggravating, this is one of my most aggravating books of the year, I think. Could also say disappointing. Definitely could say disappointing. Gideon the Ninth. Listen, how is this book pitched? Lesbian necromancers in space. Excuse me? Say no more. That's all I need. Okay, I was like, this is an automatic 5-star. Then I started reading the book, and I had heard that it was the kind of book that you don't, quote unquote, you have to be okay with not understanding what's going on with the plot for like the first 30%. And I was like, that's fine. I love that. The 5th season does that impeccably. One of my favorite books of the year, possibly of all time. And you really don't understand what's going on for like half of that book. And then everything kind of starts to fall together. That's my vibe. And this is sci-fi, but listen, okay, I would describe this, I was expecting lesbian necromancers in space, doing spacey, sci-fi, fantasy things. Really, it's lesbian necromancers locked in a mansion with a bunch of other characters who all have this names that start with like the same letter or two, so you just constantly are getting them confused, and they're all just like talking back and forth about shit that you don't understand, and there's like this locked room, not locked room, but like isolated mystery going on, and that I literally did not understand what was happening, anything, for 78% of this book. And then by the time that we got there, that ending, God, it was awful, and I did not care at all. Honestly, was the ending that bad? I don't know, because I don't know if there's anything you could have thrown at me that would have made me feel like that was worth it, but it was exhausting to read. Exhausting. I am so glad that Katie read this book and put that, like, her review up on Goodreads, because it made me feel validated, because every other person who I was seeing gave this book 5 stars and loved it, and I was like, did we read the same book? I don't often think that, but I don't understand. Katie just made me feel a little bit validated. Wanted this to work for me so badly. I wish I would have DNF'd it. If I didn't have the audiobook for this, I would have DNF'd it. But, okay, before you say that, I was reading along with the audiobook, and I reread so many sections, and I kept flipping back and forth to the character thing at the beginning, and I still was so fucking lost and didn't care and didn't know who was talking half the time. And the dialogue between like our two main girls, I think was supposed to come across as like angsty, and instead just came across as like the cringiest shit I've ever read. What? I'm so fucking disappointed. That's it. That's all I have to say about that book. Okay, we're moving on. I had literally already reserved, I guess it's not all I have to say about the book, the audiobook and the ebook for the second book, like right when I got this one from the library, because I was like, I'm gonna love it, and I'm gonna want to keep going. Then I read at my best friend's recommendation, which was just so cute, Sometimes I Lie by Alice Feeney. I believe this is the first Alice Feeney book that I've read, and I had a really good time, even though I'm pretty sure I've watched a video before that like spoiled this ending. I couldn't remember exactly what happened, but I think that was like kind of in the back of my mind, because I did guess the ending before it was revealed, and it was a really good twist that I don't think normally I would have like seen coming. And even with guessing the ending, there were still so many other twists, and I had such a good time. It is following Amber, who wakes up from a coma, but she's like, can't move, can't open her eyes, can't move, knows that there was like this accident, but doesn't know what happened. She can't remember anything. She thinks, maybe? Her husband, looking a little suspicious, maybe he had something to do with it. And it's told through Amber in that state, in present day, then like the few weeks leading up to the accident, and then we're also getting journal entries from like years ago. It was really good. It was a lot of fun, and I do feel like it's a mystery thriller book I can recommend to a lot of people. The pacing was great, the twists are good, there are a few twists even if you guess like the main one, which I always think is a fun time. And I'm very impressed whenever a mystery thriller book can still excite me and surprise me even when I have like predicted the main twist. Plus I had such a fun time like updating my friend. I was texting her like all the time with my like ideas and what I thought was gonna happen, and then when all of a sudden that would get like completely disproven, and like my way out there theories. So it was a fun time overall. This would be a really good like buddy read or book club pick if you're into like mystery thriller books. Oh, another good one, but this one I'm so sad about. So this is Love Beyond Body, Space, and Time. It is one of the first anthologies, if not the only anthology, that I've ever completed in full. A lot of times with short story collections and anthologies, I have a hard time picking them back up after I set them down one time because it feels complete to me after every time that you've read the short story. Whereas with a normal book, the point, like the whole motivation for me to pick it back up is that I still have a story to be read. And I don't feel like, obviously that's not the case with short story collections, but this was incredible. It is sci-fi, indigenous, LGBTQ, and two-spirit stories. Oh my god, it's super short. Again, could have sat down and just read it in a day, but I kind of spaced it out over a few days and absolutely loved it. The only thing that makes me a little bit like sad, well, the main thing that makes me really sad is that I'm pretty sure that this is out of print. I even asked my best friend who lives in Canada if she could get it because this is a Canadian anthology and she can't find it anywhere. The only place I was able to get it is on Kindle Unlimited, and as of right now it appears like it's still on Kindle Unlimited, and I was able to buy it on Kindle, but I had to like spend 10 minutes looking to allow it to finally give me the option to buy it on my Kindle to make sure that I always have it, because the only other like physical options are used for like $40. And it's really, really, really short. But if you happen to have Kindle Unlimited, I really, really recommend this anthology if that is, like, if you're into sci-fi queer stories. And it's light sci-fi, I would say. There's like sci-fi urban fantasy. There's really only one story that I would say is like hot, like, I don't know what the equivalent of high fantasy is to sci-fi. High sci-fi? Hard sci-fi? And not even then. They're really accessible stories. There was one that made me cry. I had to like stop reading for a bit because I cried so much. And I was able to discover a few authors from that anthology that I really love, and I went on to read from another one of those authors. Okay, Google is telling me that you pronounce this author's name Cherie Dimaline, but I don't know if that's correct, and I went to go pull up the audiobook to make sure, but it looks like maybe they're redoing the audiobook because it says that it's you can pre-order it, but I listened to the audiobook on Libby while I read the ebook of this, so I'm not sure. So this book is an indigenous dystopian story set in a future where Canada reinstates their residential schools, but for the purpose of harvesting bone marrow from indigenous people, because what happens is we end up kind of destroying our earth. There's a climate crisis, and along with that, people stop dreaming. But they realize that the only people who can dream are indigenous people, and they want to be able to dream because it's really fucking with people. So they start hunting down indigenous folk. And we're following our main character, Frenchie, as he's just trying to survive. He ends up running into a group of more indigenous folk who he kind of tags along with. This is told partly like in his perspective, but also partly through stories that he's hearing from other people. And they're just trying to like survive, but also figure out how they can move forward and like cultivate a future and how they can fight to stop this from happening. The audiobook was such a 12 out of 10 experience because this is told through stories. Hearing those stories told to you, the narrator does such a phenomenal job. I hope like if they're redoing it, or maybe it's just coming out, like maybe it's just technically becoming available in the United States, the audiobook. I hope it's the same narrator that I listen to. And if not, I'm sure they'll do a fantastic job, but the narrator who I listen to, incredible. 5 stars, did I say that? 5 stars that I read this from my library on ebook and audiobook like I was saying, but I just ordered myself a physical copy so that I can go back through and reread and annotate and highlight this because there were just so many good moments. I laughed, I cried. In so many, the prose of this is incredible. Then I read another 5-star, friends. I know. Monstrilio. I read this for the Literally Dead book club. And I think that Eric LaRocca describes this book probably better than I ever could. A wholly unique and uncompromising literary horror debut about a boy who transforms into a monster who tries to be a man, and the people who love him in every form he takes. This is told in 4 points of view. Each chapter is, I think, were there actual chapters? Don't quote me on that. Maybe there were really chapters in this, or like breaks, but I kind of read it as like each chapter was a point of view. And you know from the beginning who we're following. Like we're getting Monstrilio's perspective and his mom, his dad, and then his mom and dad's like best friend. At the beginning of this book, Magos is the mom. Her 11-year-old son dies, and she ends up cutting out a piece of his lung to kind of remember him by and keeping it in a jar. And then after hearing this folktale, whenever she goes back to visit her mom in Mexico, she starts feeding the lung, and then the lung grows into this monstrillo, little monster. But it's about grief and how you cope with loss and what it means to be human and how far we'll go for the people that we love and what love looks like in all of its forms. The writing in this was impeccable. I thought that I would like this. I didn't think that I would love it as much as I did. And the icing on the cake is that this is a debut author. I never would have guessed. The writing and the pacing, everything about this, I just thought was so well done. And it's getting fantastic reviews. This is not a horror that like only I like, which I kind of thought it would be. Like, people are loving this, so it's not just me. It's done so well. I can't wait for this author to come out with more things. I will read them. I'm so excited. 12 out of 10. I cannot wait to talk about this in the live show. Okay, I should have ended on that one. I should have switched these around, but we're going in order, and the reality is that we did not start off the month with as strong of a win as we ended the month with. No, we're gonna reverse that. That would be a reverse. We did not end the month with as much of a win as we began the month with. Another unexpectedly disappointing read. And if you just watched my like most anticipated, was it like the books I want to read this fall, I talked about this and I was so excited about it, and I truly thought it was going to be a 5-star, and that is And the Trees Crept In. What to say about this? I will say the little joke of a synopsis that I gave you in that video doesn't really do it justice for what this book is about. We're following Nori and Sela, two sisters, and the book starts off with them in the middle of like literally physically running away from their abusive home. Something happened, we don't know, but it has brought them to their aunt's house, who they've never met, who is like shocked to see them and like, oh my God, what happened to your mom? Because the mom, like the sister I knew, would have never ever let you come here. And she's like talking about how now they're not gonna be able to leave. And she lives in this big manor that's isolated from everyone else. There's like no one around her, and it's the color of blood. And we're trying to piece together like, okay, what happened to them before they got here? What's gonna happen to them now? And just as they're kind of getting settled in and finally starting to feel like maybe this could be home, the aunt walks up to the attic and then doesn't come back down. Huh? What? So Sela, which is the older sister, is left to try to take care of her younger sister and keep them alive. This book goes, the first part of this book, 5 stars. Incredible. Loved it. I was having such a good time. And then it went really downhill from there. There's a couple things. I don't like the twist and the direction that the story went, but the more that I sat here and like thought about it, I thought I could have liked it if it was just better executed. I think that this author might just not be for me, because I think it was the writing, I think it was the execution. I was excited because there was this like multimedia kind of element to it where we were getting journal entries, and that made it fly by. I read this book all in one night, but it did this weird thing where like, I was excited when I first noticed this, that as she's like writing these journal entries, certain words are bolded, and I was like, I wonder if you like put these words together, if they are like telling us a secret or giving us more information. Which, yes, if you read the bolded parts, it did make up something else, but unless I missed something, it gave you no more information. It basically just like rephrased what was said, or like gave some ominous little sentence about death and grief and loss and secrets. But it wasn't like, oh hey, if you caught on to this, you're getting a little bit of something something. No. But then they're so bolded, they're like huge text, bold, that it was hard for me to concentrate on reading it all the way through, knowing that I was gonna have to go back through and read the bolded parts. It just felt like because she was trying to do that, she was writing it in a certain way that didn't flow, and it felt cringy. That's not the vibe that I want from my horror books. I forgot to mention the main part of this. Literally where the title comes from is that as they're in this manor, they're starting to realize that it appears that the trees are getting closer and closer to the manor and just like down upon them. That was less of the story than I anticipated, I'm gonna be honest. I left that sentence out and it was literally the only thing that I gave you in my original synopsis of the book. That sounds about right. I ended up giving this 2 stars. I'm sad about it, but not as pissed off as I am about Gideon the Ninth, because I invested so much time into that book. This was one night, and it was fine, and it could have gone either way. I just think that this writer is not for me. Oh yeah, and then there was like this love story in there that, no friends, no. No, it was so cringy and so unnecessary. I hated it. Hated it. That is it for my September wrap-up. The 12 books that I read. I am feeling much more confident that I am out of my reading slump now. I haven't been reading as much since then because I've been preparing for New York. This was a very last minute thing that came up. I'm so excited. I'm gonna go talk on a panel here in a few days at the TikTok headquarters in New York. What is my life? Okay, I'm super excited, but obviously because of that I've been getting ready and I just haven't been reading as much. I probably won't read as much while I'm there, but I am hoping to go to a few used bookstores in New York City, or just like bookstores in general, pick up a few things, see some pretty things. I've never been to New York. I have no idea what to expect. I haven't had time to research anything other than the fact that I am going to see Wicked on Broadway. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, put a little pumpkin emoji, because we are now officially in October and I am officially, I am taking on the fall vibes, even though the weather is not. I will forgive it, but it needs to hurry up. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.